So welcome to the movie order, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I didn't think really worked well with Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this film in any way, shape, or form. There were a few good moments, but for the most part, I just thought it was a really weak script and with very weak editing overall. But I'm just going to point out a few of the small issues that I noticed. Now, I'm not going to focus on a lot of the nitpicks that I've been seeing for Credence being Dumbledore's brother, or why does Minerva McGonagall exist in this time period. No, I'm going to focus on some of the more other things that I noticed that I think weren't more of a in-depth look. But I'm going to spoil a few things that I believe are external issues, such as plotting from one movie to the next, versus some internal logic issues that a lot of the characters make, which aren't necessarily good. Spoilers abound. So first up, the inconsistency. Now, the first thing I remember is that Credence is supposed to be dead. He was just a little wisp of obscurus left at the end of the first one, and that's the last we saw of him. Ideally, we knew he'd be alive, but we figured maybe they'd explain how, give us a nice, grand, big explanation of what actually happened. But no, we simply hear he's in Paris. He's alive. That's it. But also, how did the Ministry even know? Newt saw the little bit of Credence left, not the Ministry, so how did the Ministry know? Also, how did they know that he's in Paris? That makes no sense because he was last seen in New York the previous year. They in no way explain this, and it just bugs me so much. This is one of the issues that comes with the scripting issue of not explaining, or showing at least. Show not tell that you're supposed to do in a visual medium. But if you don't even tell me at least, that way I don't know. Now you can't say that's all of my own speculation. That's not how this works. And it's also the first of many things that J.K. Rowling does to retcon the events from the first movie into this movie, which I really think is a bad idea, and it shows her inexperience as an actual screenwriter versus a novelist. But it still makes no sense. 9 months later, they somehow know that Credence is alive, and they go to send Newt on this random mission for some reason. Newt only dealt with Credence that one time in the first film, but somehow they think that he's worthy of being an Auror, which in itself is such a high position in the Ministry. They want him to become an Auror, something that Newt has no aspirations of. We don't know if he's a good duelist or if he can track down people, to go now and track down Newt just because, hey, main character needs to talk to another main character on this side of the world so we can show a new city. Yeah, but Newt's not even qualified, even if they did know that Credence was alive somehow. This entire scene that it sets this movie up for the most part, in the Ministry of Newt being interviewed, is ridiculous because you see Credence there on their table in the middle in the liquid, wearing the exact outfit that he'll be wearing in Paris later. But if they knew that he was in Paris and they know what he looks like, is there not some magical way that they themselves can go track him? And since he's a known accomplice of Grindelwald, as per this film, and they sent people to death based on that, they should easily be able to persuade the Paris Ministry to go after him if they know what he looks like and where he is. Why is there no other way to track this down? But again, I think it just comes down to main character needs to join every other main character over in said area for plot to advance, which is another big issue in this film. Now, a lot of this may be Credence related, but in the first film, Grindelwald had no idea who Credence was. But somehow in this film, he not only knows who Credence is, but he also knows his entire backstory, besides a few details that was later on in the film just to have a big reveal. But in this film, he suddenly knows 100% of who Credence is. How did he randomly track down his lineage when clearly only Leta Lestrange actually knew what was going on? Is there some DNA testing, some ancestry that we're supposed to be aware of? But we don't know because it doesn't tell us. Next up is Jacob's memories, which for me would be a big one. As someone who loves a fantasy aspect of movies, TVs, comics, you suddenly have a character who can only remember because he had no bad memories. But if you're telling me that after World War I, people were not excited to see something new and interesting, and people were not trying to be hopeful out in the world, if you're telling me that not a single person was there, not a kid, a 10-year-old kid that looks out and sees magic, that did not have a good memory of that just because it was something so awe-inspiring after the devastating events of World War I. Also, you have people that were inside their homes that weren't under the rain when it happened. So are those people just suddenly affected with to just stay in the air? I thought it was supposed to be part of the rain, which is why they were able to fix it Again, it makes no sense based on what it did versus what J.K. Rowling had to retcon to make the events of this film happen. And it's just, it's annoying is what it is. It's because you pretty much underdeveloped the biggest emotional impact that the end of the first film had, just so you can keep the Queenie Jacob thing going on and turn her into a kind of terrible person. Because she more or less drugs him and then takes him across to another continent just because she's in love. That's not good. That's very that's not love, and that's also very unhealthy, and a few other things that you could probably think to describe it. But it just makes no sense for Jacob to be the only person that remembers it unless she comes back and touches on it. But based on this film, it makes no sense that he remembers at all. Also, so Tina and Newt ended the first film with some slight flirting. Like, we weren't even sure if he liked her, but she liked him. But in this film, it's implied that they actually love each other, and Jacob and Queenie know that they love each other, and Tina is getting jealous that Newt is with someone else, even though they never actually started dating or talking. And apparently this entire 9-month period, it was a miscommunication on her part. Otherwise, they never really actually talked, so it makes no sense of why everybody's saying, oh my god, you guys are so in love. Now, another big thing is that damn blood pack. I hate that blood pack idea. I don't understand where J.K. Rowling got the idea from, considering we have so much lore in Harry Potter, and this is the first time this has come up, even with her addition to Pottermore. First, J.K. Rowling should have never said that Dumbledore is gay if she didn't intend on telling his story in an appropriate manner. Just by saying they're more than brothers, just either say it, don't imply it, because now you're just queer baiting, and that just demeans the importance of having queer characters in your films or your books. But the blood pact, back to it. When was it made? Was it made before Aberforth and Grindelwald had their giant duel that killed Ariana? Or was it made after? Which in that case, why would Dumbledore make a blood pact with someone who potentially killed his sister right after? At this point, they should have been even odds. There's really no point in when this blood pact was made. Now, if they made it before the duel with Aberforth, right then, I guess I could understand it. If, Dumbledore couldn't actually attack Grindelwald, and Grindelwald was trying to attack Aberforth for defending Ariana, maybe because of the Obscurus, and that's why he's been tracking the Obscurus through Ariana down to Credence, and that was his big thing with being obsessed with Albus. But otherwise, it makes no sense, because, Albus, I'm sure, can defend himself, but it makes no sense for this blood pact to have happened, regardless of any of the events around that, unless, I guess it was like a trick on Grindelwald's part to get Albus to where he could actually go after the Obscurus. But that's just theorizing at this point. Again, it's not explicitly stated in this film based on previous facts that we know from the lore and mythology of the original franchise and this new set of entries. But it's Dumbledore's past, and it doesn't really line up, and it just seems like it's just a big MacGuffin for the next film. That way, by the time we get to movie 4 or whatever, it will be 10 years, and they can actually have their final big battle heading into movie 5. So Newt and Tina were sentenced to death for helping Grindelwald in the first film, but Grindelwald himself gets to live to stand trial. It feel like they wouldn't just keep him around, they'd send him to Azkaban, or they would completely erase his memories, not just keep him there on the off chance that the all-powerful wizard that thousands of people end up following just because he's charming can potentially get out. It literally makes no sense. Alright, so now from the movie-to-movie issues to the actual logic issues within the film, where usually horror films have characters making stupid decisions, this film has a lot of characters making a lot of stupid decisions. First up, in the first film, Queenie and Tina are implied to be Jewish. Queenie and Tina Goldstein. They are ancestors of Anthony Goldstein, who is one of the few known Jewish characters in Harry's year at Hogwarts. So why would Queenie, her love and desperation for love set aside, set out to join someone who has been a main model to eradicate Muggles, the Nomash, from existence? He is trying to eradicate an entire group of people, regardless of what he told her about that she can love whoever. But that the fact that he's been to jail for this and he's the highly wizard, that this is what he's known for, and you're still going to believe him? And again, Jewish going to a comparison to Hitler in this universe. Jewish following Hitler. It is a complete stomp into the Jewish faith and what the entire Jewish people had to go through back in World War II. Now, I understand that this happened before World War II, and they're trying to set up the events that this could lead into World War II. However, the prejudice against people have always existed, especially against different religions and people of certain faiths and backgrounds. But even if you take her heritage out of it, Grindelwald still wants to eradicate all of the Muggles. But he said that, sure, you can do whatever you want, and she willingly believes him, even though she's been shown to be one of the smarter characters, at least in the first movie. It also makes no sense considering she's an empath, and even if he is really good at controlling his thoughts, like oculomancy, she should still be able to read the thoughts of his followers or anyone else there to realize, he's a bad guy. Why should I follow him? Because he's just going to break a promise. Again, she was standing right there when a girl died, and he said, just tell people about it. You know, she's fighting for a cause. Or when his faithful servant, Grindelwald, said, come on through, and then he burns up. She was there for all of this, and yet she's still so blinded by love, probably a toxic love at this point, that she willingly follows the Wizarding World version of Hitler. She should be able to read into the empty promises of a man like this. It's also kind of awkward for Grindelwald's followers to fear World War II when World War I already happened and they did nothing about it in this universe. See, that's the issue when you start bringing in real events into a fictional world. You have to start applying to why certain events did or did not happen. And sure, we don't know anything about it. Maybe they were all forced to stay out, which, because there are strict laws back in the 1920s when these films are set. But you just open a lot of scenarios and questions like this that you should have to make time to address, instead of so many subplots and characters that could have been cut from an extremely long film to have a more tight script. Why wouldn't we be asking these questions? Also, Grindelwald commits no crimes in this film. It's like how the Age of Ultron was actually the League of Ultron. His lackeys literally did all the work. And it also surprised me that you can actually cast a killing curse without saying it, because we know that inaudible spell work is very hard, especially when it comes to the unforgivable curses. Also, side note, Dumbledore never taught Defense Against the Dark Arts. It was Transfiguration. Also, coming back from Queenie earlier on, when Jacob got his head cleared after Newt released him of the spell, she kept saying that he didn't love her and that she was going to go to Paris to find Tina, but Jacob, a Muggle, should have no resistance when it comes to her being an empath. So how did she not pick up that, he really does love me? Like, I understand that she was caught up in her emotions, but it makes no sense for someone as powerful as she's been shown to be to not be able to read the mind of a very simple Muggle man when he has no mental barriers against an attack like that. And then when she gets to Paris, she thinks she hears them without actually knowing that she actually saw them. It was implied that maybe, we knew that they were there, but she didn't know for sure. So she went around crying for him anyways when she could have just apparated back to Jacob. I know it's to get her to the end of the film so you can have that big twist, and I'm sure it'll be a payoff for the next film, but again, you shouldn't have the story driving the character just so you can get him from point A to point Z. You need to actually have the characters drive that motion forward. So it's implied in the film that you can't apparate country to country, which I guess is why they couldn't get Grindelwald all the way back over to England to pay his prices for the Crimes of Grindelwald. They couldn't apparate him there. However, Queenie is easily able to apparate from country to country. So who is allowed to apparate and who isn't? Because riding in a drawn carriage in the middle of the storm, probably a 10-hour flight, all the way to England with 10 people on brooms who will get tired. I understand it made for a good action sequence if David Yates didn't direct it so erratically, but it's missing a lot of logic, especially considering how available portkeys are in this universe, and apparitions and flu networks. And I just don't understand why this had to happen, especially when he's the most wanted wizard of all time at this point. So the cat lady with her bad CGI cats. Sure, she looks suspicious, but she lets them in. and 5 minutes later she's attacking them. It Accio action scene, I guess. Also, so how was Jacob able to stand outside of Hogwarts when there are Muggle protection charms? And how do we feel about the Ministry officials using unforgivable curses when any one of them can get you sent to Azkaban? So the Obscurists are strong enough and they usually kill their host. They are unpredictable and wild. But between the events of the end of the first film to this film, 9 months, Credence has managed to control it to an extent. When he sees an ore, he's able to destroy a house and smash it back in. Destroy it and bring it back in over and over again. He does this multiple times, which shows that he has control over an Obscurus, which are not meant to be controlled. Like, that's the whole point of the Obscurus. It's wild, uncontrolled, powerful, raging magic that just comes out of you. And in the first film, whenever the Obscurus comes out, it takes a dozen plus wizards, and they still lose. It takes so many wizards attacking him, and the wizards still lose. The wizards and witches, the Aurors, they still are not able to win for the most part. But in this film, one wizard is able to stand there in a magical bubble. Okay, he got a magical bubble around him from Cinderella's fairy godmother, and he was able to stand there with the sheer power of what an Obscurus is supposed to be. So it seemed like the power scale from the first film to this film is a really big difference, and that's bad because this is supposed to be the most powerful magic that is said, according to Grindelwald, going to be able to take down Dumbledore. But if the Obscurus can't take down a lone Auror over here, who the only reason he is an Auror is because Newt didn't want the position, so a very low tier Auror who's under Grindelwald's control, if he can withstand the power of Obscurus, anyone really can in this universe, especially Dumbledore. So again, the logic that he needs Credence at the end to go against Dumbledore must be a lie because there's no truth to it. He should be dead. And I know this is more of a first film thing, but consider we're getting more to the lore of the Deathly Hallows again, because that's what Grindelwald and Dumbledore did study. According to the end of the first one and wand lore, Tina now owns the Elder Wand, so she should be pretty powerful in this film, instead of being a character who, if you remove her scenes, I mean, you're really not changing the movie at all, besides Newt being slightly more sad and mumbly. So you see where I'm going with this? There's a problem there, because she should be powerful in this, she should be wielding it, and she's on a recon mission. A big thing that came out a while before the movie was released was that Nagini is actually a Korean woman, a maledictus, who can transform into a snake by choice until she can turn back no more. But they don't explain that she can just stay human all the time and never give in to where she eventually never becomes a snake all the time. Like, it's implied that the more she turns into it, the more she becomes it. Okay, it's not. In other words, you're saying that if she chose not to become a snake all the time, that she would be fine and live out her life normally. And the sad thing is, as representation goes, I understand that the Korean aspect, that she eventually becomes a pet snake to the second Adolf Hitler in this universe, third, I guess that's her Grindelwald. But you have her stay silent most of this film. Literally standing at the side of Credence the entire film, just being like, "Are you okay?" Like, she probably had 20 words in the entire film. At least in Avengers Age of Ultron, she actually got to do stuff and be integral to the plot instead of just standing there for no reason. I really feel bad for this actress. But the film continues to go darker because we not only have that issue with the racial divide, you have another issue where Leta Lestrange is actually the not love child of a white man who used an imperious curse on her black mother, and then the mother proceeded to die in childbirth. So you're saying that she is a rape child. I don't know why she would include this subplot. Maybe it gives her a reason to have her want to swap the babies out, but again, it makes no sense. At least from a story standpoint, it's just one of those things that she wanted to make a majority white family of the Lestranges African American, which, is cool to diversify, but if you're diversifying through rape, that's not how diversity. And I know the concept is dark, and it would happen. I'm sure if magic were real, people abuse power all the time. But in essential, it's pointless to bring in this very dark backstory just to make us care for Lita, I guess is the point of it. Just to have her die shortly after. Again, spoilers. This entire video spoilers. But I don't understand the aspect of including such a dark, twisted storyline. Again, this is another example from the first part of my video of there just being too much unnecessary filler. Like, you could literally cut all of Tina out. You could literally cut most of Theseus out because he did nothing for the most part. All of Grindelwald's cronies you could easily cut out. You could have gone the Voldemort route where all we know is Lucius and Bellatrix for the most part, and that's it. One being interest of time, I could not tell you the names of anyone besides his first mate from the beginning, Abernathy, just because it was the opening scene and you're ready for hopefully a good film, which was not a good film at all, and it frustrates me to no end, and I really wish it was better because I think J.K. Rowling is a fantastic writer, and I love this universe, I love the lore, but with this film, it makes me just want to reject any further contribution of hers and just settle myself for having the original 7 books as the original canon material for me. Because I know these are supposed to be small nitpicks, but they've become much bigger, because I saw the movie for free in an early screening, and then I paid again because I really wanted to try and grasp what she was doing, but on the second viewing, I just couldn't do it. It really just sank with me that I understand this is supposed to be the wizarding world, but if you're going to keep tying it into not only the Harry Potter lore, but like, ooh, Philosopher's Stone, ooh, McGonagall, oh, is that the Titanic sinking? If you're going to continue to tie this into lore that we know, you have to keep a standard, because I understand not every story is as epic as Harry's was, but you're attempting to tell a story on a visual medium that needs to come across, and the fact that it's the worst reviewed movie by both critics and audiences speaks volume to this franchise and where it's going, because this used to be a beloved franchise, and now when people talk about this film, I have heard within my friend group and people that I know, I've heard very few positive things, and they all relate to Hogwarts. Which again is something, if you cut out all the Hogwarts scenes and flashbacks and Dumbledore's character, you have a shorter movie where you can flesh out all these characters. And again, I know I'm going off topic from the inconsistencies and logics and stuff like that, but it just really, it frustrates me because Harry Potter is the reason that I got into writing and to directing and photography. Harry Potter is the reason my love of arts exists from my childhood. And it's being destroyed by the very person that created it and inspired me, which I think is one of the worst parts. But on a more positive note, instead of nitpicking, I do think that usually you shouldn't take reviews. Like if you know people are happy with your film and you make money, I understand the studio is going to be happy, but I do think they should listen to a vast majority of people and get J.K. Rowling not only a screenwriting partner, but probably another person to be the sole screenwriter. Because I think J.K. Rowling works best when she can write out everything that she wants, and then someone goes through and takes out what is the important to tell a visual story on the big screen. I think that would work best for her to write it all out, then have as an outline, and then have someone else go through it. I also think that David Yates is the wrong person to continue directing this. After directing, this is the 6th movie so far. I definitely think this needs new blood, because while this film did feel differently stylized from his previous films, I don't think that his directing is suiting the type of tone that they're looking for, because even with the bad script, the directing should be able to try and balance that out, and vice versa. But I feel like both David Yates and J.K. Rowling are dragging down what was once a great franchise. But what do you guys think? Just let me know down below if you do have any thoughts, if you agree. If you don't agree, I mean, I'll probably end up doing another video just because I have a lot on my mind. And I think I might end up doing a rewatch of the original stories. Maybe I'm so blinded by my love from growing up with them. Or maybe I'll be able to look at them now and be like, okay, this wasn't as good either. But let me know what you guys think.